Righty, guys, welcome back to a Tradie Talks podcast. I'm your host, Dos, and today I have a very, very special guest on board, someone who I've just recently got in contact with on social media. I put a post up the other week around apprentices sharing their story and some of their experiences, and the young man by the name of Sebastian Flanagan has reached out. Sebastian is a young, hungry, and determined second-year apprentice plumber from Melbourne, Victoria, who loves to socialise with his mates and hit up the local music festivals. He's also a massive travel advocate, having gone to South Africa, Fiji over the past few years, and just said to me that he's going to Vietnam soon, which is exciting. Sebastian has a very unique story, and I'm super excited to go into depth today on what it means to be a second-year plumbing apprentice in 2023. And I've nearly ran out of breath. So welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks so much, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on board, bro. So for the first question I'd like to ask you is obviously, could you summarize yourself in one word?
Yeah, I'd say like with regards to my apprenticeship, resilient. Like I feel like a few times throughout it, I've definitely hit rock bottom and thought, oh, maybe it's not for me. But I've sort of kept going through that. So yeah, that'd be my one word without stroking my ego too much.
I like the resilience with your apprenticeship. What about outside your apprenticeship in your everyday life? What would be a word? Have a good think about it.
I'm gonna have to think about that one a bit actually. Yeah, I'd say maybe not one word, but open to learning new experiences. And yeah, as I said, that I think that shines through the apprenticeship and other areas of life. So yeah.
100%, man. I'm glad I asked you that question. Open to learning. So when you say that, what again in your outside of your apprenticeship, how would you define that? Like, what's something that really lights you up, and you're like, yeah, fuck, I want to go and learn that or have a crack at that?
Yeah, well, for me personally, it's the idea of going to new places and meeting new people. Because I think like, you know, I just turned 20, so as soon as you leave school, you kind of your social circle can either get really big or really small.
Mm.
And like when I left school, I found it got a bit smaller because I was doing something different to a lot of my mates. Um, Whereas now kind of gets a bit bigger and yeah, so.
So you feel your circle's got bigger since you left school?
Yeah, well, it was kind of weird. It was varied. I graduated in 2020.
Mm.
Um, and like obviously around COVID and all that stuff, it was a hectic time for everyone. So I kind of went through like a dip period where I didn't really make any new mates, and I was definitely anticipating to make new mates out of school. But then, yeah, you get out there a bit, put yourself out there, and meet new people, which is great, and I like that a lot. So.
What was some of the environments you would put yourself in, Sebastian? Like, was it again like things that you are interested in, or you sort of gravitated to things that your current friends were doing?
Well, naturally, I'm pretty sporty, so I found continuing with sports and trying new sports. Like me and my mate just did beach volleyball, signed up for that.
Yeah,
It's a
fuck
great
yeah.
way to meet people, and meet a good type of people who sort of have the same interests as you. But then, of course, you go out and festivals, as you mentioned before. I know you like it as well, so pretty easy to meet people at those types of things. I'm sure you know.
It's they're an interesting place, festivals, that's for sure. But we'll definitely get into that today, man.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate you coming on board. The other question I have for you, obviously leading off that, is why did you choose a plumbing apprenticeship?
It was mainly because I did a pre-app. So I did my pre-app when I was in high school. And then from there, like a lot of people, I was kind of not sure what I wanted to do. I'm still not 100% sure, by the way. Um, and then I sort of thought, well, I've already done the pre-app. The biggest thing that was in my ear at the time was there's really good money in the trades. It's an expanding industry, which is true, but I think there's a little more to that. So yeah, I just thought, I'll bite the bullet, try something new, and if I don't like it, I can always stop and go to uni.
Do you feel that you'll finish your apprenticeship? Like, do you think it's something, again,
Yeah,
obviously, this is no dig at your boss if he ever listens to this or whatever. It's more of just an open-ended question.
yeah. Um, Look, man, like it changes on a daily basis, to be honest. But overall, I think it's important if you are an apprentice or a young apprentice, especially, that you kind of try and maintain the mindset of I'm going to finish it. And if not that, I'm not saying, everyone has to do an apprenticeship and you have to finish it. I think you get some people that are like, suck it up and finish your apprenticeship. And like a saying that I heard at the start of my apprenticeship was with my first company, it was I've gone blank now. But it was
That's all right.
essentially it was saying, oh, there it is, short term pain for long term gain.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, like standard apprenticeships of 4 years, that is quite a bit of time. So yeah, for me, I'm definitely aiming to finish it. I set myself out for that goal early. But you never know, to be honest.
100%, man. And I think it's good that you're open to change. I think you don't necessarily have to sign up for an apprenticeship and finish it at the end of the day. And this is something that, yeah, I got drilled into me when I was doing my apprenticeship. Like I was saying to you before we jumped on, like I really don't like plumbing, and that's just my own experience. But for other people, like I can see that it's definitely a trade of choice. But
Yeah,
if you're a listener listening to this, like you don't necessarily have to either stay in the one job or stay in that apprenticeship. You can try new things or new trades at the end of the day because,
yeah,
mate, 4 years is such a small period of your life when you look at over the course
yeah.
of your life.
In perspective, yeah, yeah, for
Do you?
sure.
Yeah, you go.
Sorry, you
Sorry.
go. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it is like in the grand scheme of things, it's not too long. I think it can feel a lot longer though, for like if you're actually in it. And I think that like once you start kind of, because there was definitely a point for me where I was super like on the fence on whether I actually wanted to do this. But as you mentioned before, I think you're bang on. Like you don't have to stay in the one trade, you move around, and I think through that you can grow as a person, and you find out what you like. You get to understand your own work ethic, which I think is super important as well. So yeah,
I think that's a cool word that you say too, work ethic, because the trades are a very physically demanding job. Like it really does test you, and I think you do know within the first couple of months whether you're going to be able to sustain it long term.
yeah,
And I think that's probably where a lot of apprentices nowadays go into the trades and then leave because it's not necessarily for them. And I completely understand that because there are a lot of bosses out there who are fucking hard yakka, as you would say, and it's
100%.
and I think that's why I'm doing these podcasts with obviously yourself and whoever else wants to jump on and speak about it, because there needs to be more relatability out there to say that you're not alone. Now, again, I see a lot of stuff on TikTok nowadays, people complaining and stuff like that, and I get it. But I think it's just important to get everyone around each other and speak about their experiences because you can fucking relate at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the common ground with me and you is, you've been there. I'm in the midst of it right now. So yeah, I think it's good if, other apprentices can come together and sort of talk about what they're finding. And I mentioned to you earlier, like I've got a lot of mates that do apprenticeships, not just in plumbing, but in all trades. And we all talk about it, if we have a shit day, we'll have a bitch about it, we'll have a moan and all that usual talk, but it never kind of goes. Um, and I think it's important to chat about it, which is why I'm super keen to come on with you.
Yeah. No, 100%, mate. It's good that you've got that support network there to speak about it because, yeah, at the end of the day, you may have a little bit of a bitch about it, but you don't necessarily let that drag on to the next day. Again, like I
Yeah,
could be wrong here, but I think that's important in itself is to, if you've had a shit day, to address it with whoever you can and then move on because, yeah, it's, especially being in the trades and being around people who don't necessarily relate to you, it's hard to let that go.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But like another thing on that is, in the trades, obviously, it's like it's a certain demographic. It's not as varied in the sense of what like I've got a lot of my mates are either in uni or doing an apprenticeship, and obviously in uni, like there's much more adversity. But in the trades, you kind of have to be built for it. I think that's the reality of it. Maybe not for all trades, but definitely like plumbing, carpentry, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that common ground's definitely important.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I agree. So my question for you, bro, obviously going back to your apprenticeship, and obviously you're 2 years in now, you've made the decision to jump into the plumbing game. You're a little bit on the fence for it. How was your start and to now? What's sort of been some of the challenges you faced and some of the positives? Again, feel free to answer those questions separately, but yeah, give us a bit of a paint the picture for us.
Right. Well, like there's a lot to cover, so I'll try and keep on track. But I started my apprenticeship almost straight after school. Did schoolies and then started the apprenticeship. And kind of from the get go, like it's scary, especially for a young bloke coming out of school and then going into that kind of environment. If you haven't experienced it before, what's the saying? Small fish in a big pond type of thing. So you kind of really do have to find your footing when you're starting out. So I started at a pretty large company. But then, I had issues within like the first couple months. They couldn't find work and stuff like that. So I moved on and started doing like more domestic work, kind of, and renovations, extensions, and things like that. And I'd say that's where I kind of really got to think, okay, like this is plumbing, whereas I didn't really get that at the first place I was with. I got to really experience the trades and interact with other tradies and get a feel for like basically how the entire industry operates. And I think the initial, and like to any people coming out of school now and thinking of doing an apprenticeship, the shock to my system was obviously waking up early and like having that consistent, full-time work. And, I can't really understate, for me at least, like how you have to adapt to that, especially coming straight from school, waking up early and being on the tools all day. As you said before, it's a fucking physical job. Like in a lot of days, you're going to be sore at the end of it. And then, I moved around a little more and experienced a few shitty bosses. But I think through those experiences and through those struggles, I've kind of come out of it and I've been able to adapt and grow. And not only think, okay, what should I avoid? And like, is this company going to be right? But also a bit of personal reflection and think, okay, what's actually within my control to be the best worker I can be and, grow as an apprentice and also as a person in general. Like, I think it's super important. And I think the trades are good for that in a way. They can kind of like, especially if you want to stick it out, they can help you achieve work ethic and goals and things like that. But then, alternatively, for some people in the trades, I know, they'll spend the whole week working, breaking their balls, and, they're fucked by the end of the week. And then the weekend comes around and they're, going out and, having a good time. And then it's just that repetitive cycle, which I think a lot of people can fall into. But I think it's also a good opportunity to have a balance and a routine, and to, find a bit of grounding in your work and in your life, really. So
I'm glad you mentioned that word routine, Sebastian, because that's something that I've again obviously coached a lot of apprentices on and try my best to give them the tools for that, because that is, I feel, the backbone of sticking out your apprenticeship is having some sort of morning routine or afternoon routine that's going to keep you in step. Because as you said, going from school to a job like that is a whole different fucking ball game, especially if you don't land in a company that actually values you. And I think even then as well, like if they do value, there's still going to be that you're working 40 hours a week, you are going to be physically tired and mentally tired. And as you said, it's I'm about socializing and stuff on the weekend, but if you don't have a routine for your, say, mental health and physical health, and you're looking after yourself and you're going down that rabbit hole or that loop of drinking because you don't like your job and stuff like that, that's when things can start to get really fucking pear-shaped.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, I think it's easy to fall into that, because it's kind of stigmatized around construction, I've found personally, going out and like, I'm all for it, to an extent, but falling into, that kind of poor habits, where you work during the week and then, the weekend comes around and you just basically spend the whole weekend fucking on it. I think that's something to watch out for. And I think it's just about finding balance, and once you find that balance, you can kind of channel it, and then all in all, you'll find more enjoyment in what you're doing.
No, I agree with you, man, as well. And I think is the other thing I'll highlight with that is like really as you get older, as an apprentice, and you really start to, or you should start to ask yourself, what actually interests you at the end of the day? Like, do you genuinely love going out on the weekend and getting pissed, or are you doing that to, because you don't necessarily like your job, because all of a sudden you may change that job
Yeah.
and your perspective or your priorities may change. Now, again, I'm not sitting here saying not to fucking get on the piss and stuff like that. I'm all about it. But when it comes to looking after yourself, that's when you really do need to draw the line. So you mentioned the word balance there. How do you go about, obviously, you know, I know you said that you go to a few music festivals and stuff like that. How do you find getting to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Because again, I know it's a very hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah.
It's something I battled with.
Yeah. Well, just on that, I think everyone's kind of battled with it at a point. But you know, and I'm not perfect. Like there are still some weekends where I go out for a couple of drinks and I get home at like, you know, the next morning. But you know, all in all, the way that I kind of do it, and I'd encourage other people to do this is, you know, obviously like you're young and you want to have your fun and all that type of stuff, and everyone does, I think. But I kind of say to myself, all right, I'm going to go out on Friday or Saturday or both if I'm feeling reckless. But for me, it's always kind of Sunday. You know, I say regardless on Sunday, wake up like 11 or 10 by the latest. Go gym, and then I find a sauna really helps as well. You sweat it all out. And then you kind of just utilize that day and you do things on Sunday that you know are going to benefit your week. And it starts with small things, and like it's these little habits, you know, like making sure your car's full. You filled up your car, so you don't have to do it in the morning, or you pack your lunch, or you arrange your tools, you know, shit like that. For me personally, I find that just it gives me a bit of clarity. Whereas, you know, if I don't do that and like everything's a mess, you know, as a person, I like to be organized. So if everything's kind of scattered in a mess, then it puts me in shit stride for that week or for that day at least, you know.
100%, mate. Great advice as well. And I want to ask you as well, where did you pick that up? Where did you pick the organisation stuff up from?
Um, Honestly, mate, just trial and error. Like
Mm.
I've been doing this for 2 years, and there have definitely been points in it where I thought like, okay, something's not working. I gotta readjust in some type of way. Um, and yeah, it was basically just trial and error and finding that balance. And yeah, I'd encourage other people to do the same.
Mm. No, I agree, man. That's again, I'm very, very happy to have got you on board, because that, yeah, in itself is, I think, where a lot of apprentices miss the mark, because it's how you start your day, is how it will unfold. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, fortunately, a lot of people nowadays do start their days with their phones and in their same work clothes and don't have their lunches and stuff like that. And then they do. The thing with that is you get to a job that you may not necessarily love. You're going to start resenting it and hating it because you're not necessarily organized or even equipped for the day ahead.
yeah, and that's something that I've experienced firsthand as well, and what I'm gathering you have too, is you know you wake up and you really really don't want to be at work, and that's a shit feeling. And you know, and to people listening, if you do feel like that, I'd encourage you to try and get it fixed. Maybe it's not for you, but in most cases, I feel like there are things that are within your control that you can do to make it more bearable. But as I said, like as a general statement, I don't think the trades are for everyone at all. But for the people that are in it and do like what they do, yeah, there are definitely things you can do to make it easier for yourself.
100%, mate. And I think it's like, if you can find, and it does take time, find an employer who actually values you and you can go to and
Yeah,
seek advice, and, you know, have some sort of boundaries in place. Again, because as we spoke about before, if you are an apprentice that comes straight from school, and it's the same thing with the system. Like, you sign on the dotted line, you get thrown on the job site, you don't necessarily even meet your boss, and you know there's no point of contact there. So I think it's super important to be able to find someone that you can go and speak to properly from an employer perspective.
yeah.
Sebastian, question for you: do you have mentors?
Um, yeah, I'd say I definitely have mentors. Like, you know, whilst in the industry, I've found there to be some real pricks, like to put it bluntly. I've also found there to be some great blokes in what I do. So I think it's good in the way that, like, oftentimes when you're an apprentice, you're obviously surrounding yourself with older blokes, and I think that can be super helpful. So yeah, I met some blokes in my first couple companies, and we still chat here and there, and see how each other are going. So I think that's something that you definitely should utilize. If you're an apprentice, like there are older people and there are people that are willing to guide you and help you. But unfortunately, I think a lot of boys don't really ask for it. They kind of just like go along to get along sort of thing. So yeah, I definitely implore people to talk and not everything's going to come to you easy in the trades. So you kind of do have to look for it, and maybe step out your comfort zone, and meet people because it's definitely possible. As I said, I've met some really top-notch guys through plumbing. So yeah.
Do you feel from a trade school perspective that you've met some like-minded people there, or what's your take on the trade school system?
Um, Personally for me, it's been pretty positive. All,
Yeah.
all in all, like, I've got mates at TAFE and there's banter. And I also think TAFE, like once you can get started, because I know for a lot of the trade schools, there's a massive delay because of COVID. But once you get in there, I think it's a good opportunity to, have a break firstly on the tools, and then you can kind of study like more theory-based things, which I think can be great. And it's kind of the luck of the draw. Like, in anything you do in life, you're not going to like everyone. Not everyone's going to like you. But yeah, generally speaking, I found it pretty positive.
100%. And I think something that I'm really taking away from you right now, Seb, is you have a very positive mindset. And I think that goes to show within your trades or in your job and in your trade school, you've probably attracted that in. And I think, if you do go into something a little bit scared or fearful and you're not necessarily content or confident in yourself, that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. Like you are what you attract. So
Mm.
if you're gonna go and like piss around or be a dickhead in at work or at TAFE, and then the likelihood is other people will join you in that. But in saying that, like trade school, it is good because you can have a bit of a break and a muck around, but you can also learn and you get paid for it. So I think like in terms of like the way that apprenticeships operate in, I won't say in Australia, but in Melbourne, I don't know. I think it's great. You get paid to learn, which I think people should definitely utilize. Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's a good point you make as well, man. Because it sort of feels like when you leave school, and it probably is the reality of you either go to uni or you get do an apprenticeship. Like,
Oh,
or
yeah.
you can get a job, but like no one really sort of looks at it like that. So, oh, fuck, I need to jump out and do it. But you
Yeah.
know, even for the listeners that are listening to like you don't necessarily have to do what everyone wants you to do at the end of the day. Like sit with yourself and ask yourself these questions like what actually interests me, where do I want to put my time and my effort? Because yeah, it's apprenticeships do, you do get paid to learn, and I'm not knocking them down here at all, but there are other options out there if you do seek the answers within yourself.
Yeah, that definitely. And like, high school is still pretty fresh for me. I remember in year 12, like we had a careers person. And yeah, it was basically, okay, do you want to go to uni or do you want to do a trade? And I thought to myself, you know, I said trade, but I thought to myself, well, maybe neither. Like, what else can you give me? And that's why I love what you do, Dos, because it's kind of off charts and you've gone in your own direction, like individually. So yeah, and like I've got mates, as I said, who do apprenticeships or go to uni. But there's definitely like other things you can do, and I think in order to find that, and I'm still weighing that up myself. I definitely don't intend on being on the tools forever. I want to do other things, but I think that kind of comes from like having a chat with yourself and saying, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And importantly, what do I enjoy doing? And I think everything's pretty money oriented when it comes to like, and part of the reason I picked a trade was because I heard, really good money. But I think fundamentally, if you can do something where you get up and you're like, I'm happy I'm doing this and I'm glad and it fulfills you, then 100% do it, and that might not be uni or the trades. It could be fucking anything. I've seen people make clothing brands, skincare brands. You're an example as well. And you can definitely excel in things that you're passionate about. I think that's the main thing.
100%, bro. And I think like we are. There's a quote that I love, and it's you're more capable than you think.
Yeah,
It's something like that. But I think that's a great point that you made there. Is like there is a lot more opportunity out there if you are willing to go that little extra mile to seek it out. And I think
yeah,
as well through a process of some sort of self discovery, whether it's through journaling or a bit of meditation or anything like that, that can really start to uncover a few things that do want to make you tick. So my
yeah.
question for you, man, is like because we've touched a bit on apprenticeships now, and I'm getting the real vibe that you see a little bit more of a bigger future for yourself. And I'm glad that I've got you on board because it'll allow other people to think a little bit more outside the box.
Yeah.
Is there something specific that you're leaning towards at the moment? Is there something that really
Oh,
is in the background?
I probably couldn't nail it down to anything specific. As I said, I'm still kind of, thinking about it. I think what makes it difficult is like there are so many options. Like you literally are limitless with what you want to do with yourself. But like in terms of things that I'm passionate about, I really enjoy traveling and going to new places. I've seen people make careers out of that. I love the ocean as well. So maybe, I don't know, marine biology, something like that. Personally, I enjoyed history in school. So yeah, something along those lines. But that's a difficult question. You're hitting me with difficult questions, Dos.
Nah, I like that. I'm glad I asked you because yeah, no, as I said, like it's I I feel it's good for other people to expand and think that it's you don't necessarily just need to be hung up on an apprenticeship or I have to run
Yeah.
my own plumbing business. There are a lot of other options out there, man. So again, to tie that up, what would be your you know what I wasn't going to ask that question because it sort of ties in, but do you have any intention of running your own business long term?
Um, For me, I'd say probably not. That could change. As I said, I don't want to limit myself to anything. My mindset at the moment and until the apprenticeship ends is, I'm going to see how I feel and I think take advantage of all the opportunities that come my way, which is important for young people. Um, Overall, I'd probably say no. And my reasoning behind that is, I've worked for a few companies, and there's definitely great money to be made. And if you're driven and passionate about running your own crew, then I'm not shaming anyone for that. But for me personally, it just seems a little bit too stressful for something that, other than money, I'd say the reward may not be big. But, in saying that, that's me personally. I'm sure other people, they think about running their own business, plumbing business at least, from when they were just, an apprentice. But for me, I don't think so. I think I'd more lean towards maybe a one-man show or a two-man show if I ever were to do that, just something more manageable.
Mm.
But yeah,
I think it's an important point you make there around it being stressful because as well from when you are a young apprentice going through the trades and you're working with someone who is very stressed out of their brain, it doesn't necessarily look that
no,
appealing.
no,
But one thing that really makes me think is like if a lot of these apprentices, even myself and you including, had someone from day dot who had absolutely mastered it, like from a business perspective of making money, having time off, spending time with their family, not having toxic culture. Like the
yeah,
industry is built on a lot of rubbish, in my opinion. And I think if the industry can flip and go that route, I think running a business could be quite beneficial for those who want to do it because we're so fixated on Monday to Friday, 7 till 3:30, Saturday, 7 till fucking 4:30, and work Sunday if we need to. Like, why don't we drop all that bullshit and work fucking 3 days a week and then 2 days, you work on something completely different, like
yeah,
what you're looking to do at the moment, like bit of self discovery, getting in
yeah.
the ocean, but there's nothing. That's not how the industry has been built for years, and it needs a quality shakeup. Do you agree?
Um, I definitely hear what you're saying. Uh,
Mm.
but I think That's the thing is when it comes to businesses, I mean, it'd be great if there could be like a 3 day on, 2 day off type of thing. But what I've found with plumbing companies or companies in general, um, is it's obviously if you're owning, like if I'm the boss of a company, naturally my main instinct is going to be I want to make as much fucking money as possible. And through doing that, you you put your workers on some bullshit hours, or you get them doing some really shitty jobs, but it's all for personal gain. So,
Mm.
I mean, in an ideal world, 100% I agree with you. But
Mm.
personally, that's not something that I can see happening, although I'd love it to.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, again, I
That's why you
appreciate
got
you
my
saying
support.
that. I appreciate you saying that, man, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and a lot of people do disagree with it. But I do think there's something there that can be tapped into, and I think it is going to start with, this is my own opinion. I'm not necessarily knocking yours down. It's going to start with completely changing the apprenticeship program, because I don't think it's actually structured for people to get the most out of their apprenticeship.
Yeah, definitely. And I think proof of that um, is, by like, sometimes more in the past, I'm on a bit of a better wavelength now, but like I'd clock off at 3:30 and I'd literally be like, I do not want to think about work or tools, fucking anything, until I had to face it at 7 the next morning. That's why I'm loving what you're doing, Dos, is I think there's definitely some things that should change in the construction industry. And I think naturally they will change because it's kind of stereotypically, you get older blokes like who kind of pass that down because that's what they had. And like I've worked with people and bosses who, can give you stick. And the justification behind it is, oh, well, that's what I got. And then, so it's kind of like this cycle of like, okay, I'm going to treat you like shit. And then you're going to treat your apprentice like shit. And then you're going to be a twat to this guy and fucking yada, yada. So yeah, I think it's definitely important. And if you can like set those changes in stone, I think it'll have a ripple effect because just in the way that, what I just described has had a ripple effect on apprentices over time.
No, you've absolutely fucking nailed that, mate. That's exactly what the industry. Again, not every company's like that, but
Yeah.
it's the majority of it is. And yeah, I think as you said before, like there definitely does need to be some sort of change there, and that's why I'm quite confident and optimistic that as this older generation starts to phase out, if you're listening to this, my apologies, but you know, once they start to leave, I'm hoping that obviously your generation, a little bit of mine, can
Yeah.
start to pick up the pieces a little bit more. Because yeah, if you look at the world, we're changing quite drastically, especially with AI, social media.
Yeah.
What's to say in 10 years, your plumbing company's not surrounded by robots?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing as well is compared to back in the day, things definitely are changing in every sense really when you think about it. So I agree with you. I think that kind of that old way of thinking is going to be phased out, and I think it'll be pushed to the newer generation, and hopefully, and I'm pretty confident that it'll be positive.
Mm.
So yeah.
Definitely, brother. No, again, you've absolutely nailed that. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah.
The one question I want to finish off with, bro, and again, I appreciate you coming on board, is there anything on your heart or mind that we haven't touched on today that you would like to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I'd say like if you are a young dude coming out of school or you're in my position, you're second year, first year, whatever, um, I wouldn't restrict yourself by saying, oh, I have to finish this apprenticeship. Because as you were saying before, Dos, like 4 years, it's not a long time in the grand scheme of things, but you can put a lot into 4 years and you can do heaps of different shit. So I'd say you don't have to finish the apprenticeship. I think it's good to try things out, especially when you're young, because that's how you kind of get a feel for what you want to do when you're older. And yeah, if like there are hard days, I have hard days, and everyone has hard days. But my advice would be, you take it day by day, and just I get fulfillment honestly out of just knowing within myself that I'm doing the best I can, and that I'm actually having a crack. So I think that if other people do that, even if you have a shitty boss or like if you're not quite digging your work culture, well, if you're not quite digging your work culture, I think you should consider leaving firstly. Um, But yeah, I think it all comes from within, and just having a crack really. But that's not to say that if you keep having a crack and it's not paying off, or you're not getting that kind of what's the word? You're not getting that rush from it, and like you're just not feeling it. Then yeah, I'd say do something else, like what you've done. You're a perfect example, honestly. Now you're doing your own thing, so yeah. As we were speaking about before, there's always other options for people. Yeah, the world's your oyster, I'd say.
Mate, great fucking advice. Fucking spot. You've absolutely nailed the answers to these questions, and I appreciate all the kind words that you've been saying about me.
No,
it means a lot, bro.
Yeah.
I've got a little question off the top of that, actually. So you mentioned obviously the 4 years.
Yeah.
If I put to you, and this is just, you could say it's market research, but I'm going to say it anyway. If I said to you, all right, you're going to come out of school, you've got an option to do a 4-year apprenticeship, or you've got an option to trial, say, plumbing, electrical, bricklaying, concrete, all in the one, what would you pick?
100% all in the one.
All in the one.
Yeah, and that goes back to not limiting yourself,
Mm.
And yeah, definitely all in one, because you get more of a feel for what you actually enjoy or don't enjoy through that. That's why I think trying heaps of things when you're younger, or however old you are, is super important.
Mm. That's a good point. Yeah, you've got me thinking, because I think if we could look at something like, it could like not necessarily be 4 years, it could be, a year where you go, okay, well, I've got 12 months, I'm going to commit to this apprenticeship, and I'm going to do 3 months as a plumber, 3 months as a sparky, 3 months as a chippy,
Yeah.
3 months as a fucking bricklayer. Now, again, this concept would have to be quite an interesting one. I feel like you would probably have to get a community of people and businesses that agree on the idea to actually do it. But why not?
Yeah,
Why
no, I think that's brilliant, to be honest. I've never even thought about something like that, but yeah, hearing that'd be great, and I think that'd be great for everyone.
not?
Yeah, I don't think anything like that exists currently, but if it did, if that existed and I knew about it when I was wrapping up year 12, any day of the week I would have done that, and I'd like a lot of people would agree.
Yeah, it's something that's been on my mind for a while, and I think from a business perspective that from a business owner that owns these companies, I'd love to know how that would work. But I think it would if you had the rotation right, with the people. But yeah, it would be hard. But as I said, the industry needs a bit of a shake up. So yeah, that could be an option.
Yeah, younger generations coming through for sure. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. And if you do decide to pursue that, you've got my vote for sure, man. So
Sweet, mate. No, I appreciate that, brother. Hey, so for the listeners that are obviously listening and they want to get in contact with you, just on Instagram.
yeah, you can reach out my Instagram for sure. Any questions, younger guys coming through. Yeah. Should I drop the Instagram, or are you gonna
Yeah,
put
drop it.
All right. Username is Seb_R_Flanagan.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's another underscore in the end. I don't think there is.
That's all right. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. All right. Sweet.
Again, guys, if you are listening to this, feel free to tag me and Seb in a piece of content if you have taken value away from it. Again, I love to see all the reviews and people subscribing to the YouTube channel and all that jazz. So yeah, if you have taken value away, tag me and Seb in it. But mate, appreciate you again coming on board, bro.
Yeah, mate. Thanks for having me.